Constraints in SQL. What are constraints? Like in real life, what are constraints? Constraints are a way to actually put some kind of restrictions on a way that things are being done, right? So in SQL too, we can see it as a way of enforcing a rule on the data columns in a table. So the way we actually insert data in a table are guided by some specific rules on how we want the data to be assembled and what kind of data we also want in the SQL, right? So moving forward, these are used to limit the type of data that can go into a table. This ensures the accuracy and reliability of the data in a database. Constraints could either be in a column level or a table level. The column level constraints are applied only to one column, whereas the table level constraints are applied to the whole table, which of course involve multiple columns. So we'll look into that in a practical aspect, but before we go into the SQL Server itself, I want us to look at the kind of constraint we have. We have not null. So in a column that we don't want a null or empty value in it, we can use the not null constraint there. That way it ensures that something must be inserted into the value. We'll see how that works. We also have the unique, which ensures that all values in a column are different. We also have a primary key, a combination of a not null and unique. The primary key in real life is actually what we use to identify each rows in a table. So we have a foreign key which uniquely identify a row record in another table when we actually have a primary key in a table represented as a foreign key in another table because we actually want to map a relationship between both tables. We'll see how that works as we proceed as well. So the check constraint itself is a way to ensure that we actually um, make sure that the values in a column satisfy a specific condition. For example, if you are building an application that we don't want any registrars or users in the application to be less than 18 years old, we can ensure that the age column in the application does not accept anything that is less than 18 years old. So you actually check if the user registering meets a specific condition before it grants access into the table, right? So we have default as well, and we have index, but we'll look into this. Let's get started with not null. So most of this explanation can actually have a visual and practical explanation into it, then it will make sense. So here we are in the SQL Server Management Studio. I have made a video on my previous YouTube channel on how to actually download this server, and also even introduction to SQL. I have it all in my previous video on YouTube. You might want to revisit that. That way you can get all these tools ready to get started. And if you already have all that, then let's go. And if you don't have it, you can pause this video. Please revisit my previous videos on introduction to SQL Server, and I think somewhere in introduction to programming language from my previous videos as well, I actually explained how we can download all this from the internet. So moving forward, we'll get started with the constraint that we talk about. So in SQL itself, I've also created a video on how to create tables and all that. So in the introduction to SQL, we actually created this journey to full stack. So we'll be using this journey to full stack database itself. So to use the database, we have to tell the SQL server that we are using the journey to full stack database. That way we just type the word use journey to full stack. So the moment we execute this, the SQL Server gives us this database. So whatever we are writing from henceforth is being done in this database here. In the database here, we have, if we look into the tables, we have just employee tables, right? And if I select all the rows in there, we have these two people there. But we won't be working with the employee table for now. We'll be creating a new table from the scratch. So to create table with constraints in itself. But before all this makes sense, let's actually try to create a table, which is create table. Let's give that table person. So what are the properties or attributes that a person can have? Of course, a person will need an ID. Let's give that person ID. What is the data type of a person ID? To be integer, right? Then a person full name. Let's give that first name. First name will be a varchar, right? We also want to restrict the number of numbers of characters in the name. Let's put that to 30. Person last name, we'll give that varchar as well. 30 as well. And I think that should actually be it for now. Or let's just put person age int. So let's just use that for now. Oh, there should be a comma here. So let's work with this for now for a start. So if I create this table, right? Command completed successfully. So if we go into this table, refresh it, we can see the table person there. But what is wrong with this table, right? So if I go ahead and try to execute the person table, uh, let me see, execute the person table. Okay, just a second. No, that was the wrong portal. So if I go to the person table here, select stop 100, obviously we don't have any record there, right? But the table is created. But I'm going to go ahead and insert uh, you know, data into the person table. So how do I do that? I just put insert into person. So what are the things that the person table are expecting? They're expecting a person ID, right? Person ID, expecting a first name, expecting a last name, and of course expecting age, right? So then what are the values of these parameters here? So we have to ensure that we put a values into the values, right? So the value of person ID, we can put something like uh let's say number 1, of course, ID. The first name, which is a varchar, let's put Mary. The last name, we can put Lane. The age, we can put Null, right? So there's a reason I'm doing this. Let's work with this first. Now I've inserted this into the database. So if we go into the persons table, or if we just type select all from person, so it will give us what we have just inputted now. But what if I go ahead and insert this same thing again here? It's inserted, right? And I insert it again, it's inserted, right? Then if I click select person, we have 3 person with identical information there. Person ID is 1, person first name is Mary, and last name is Mary. So but in real life, if we have an application where people with the same name actually register into the application, so how do we configure the application to locate each person, right, without actually providing wrong information for the wrong user? So we need to actually come with a pattern, a methodology, a logic to ensure that each data in the application are unique, even if the users have similar name. We have to make something unique. So that is what is actually wrong with this table here. So what we are going to do here is we are going to drop this table, because no user is going to use your application if they find out this is how your application operates, right? So how do we drop table? We're just going to type drop table. I mean, we can just come here, come to person and click on delete, then we press OK here. But if we don't want to do that, we can just type drop table person, and then we drop the table. It's going to delete the table. Command complete. So if you come here and refresh it, right, we wouldn't see the person table there anymore. Even if we query it, it will tell us it no longer exists, right? So it's no longer there. So we are going to have to recreate this table. So what we are going to do here is this is the person ID, right? Okay, we are going to ensure that we use the word identity to identify it. Okay, identity, this is an ID. We are telling the SQL that this will be the row that we use to identify the user identity. Then it should start from 1, then also increment by 1. So if we start from 1, if we create 1, the next one will automatically be 2. So like you see the other time we created 1, it keeps creating 1 1 1, but this will increment automatically by 1. That's what we've done here. Then we also have to name it that it's going to be a primary key. So the primary key makes it unique, right? Makes it unique. So then we are also going to do something here. Not null. We also want to ensure that this is not null. Not null, right? And even the age itself, we can allow null there. So, but the first name and last name might be not null. So what are these not null thing? But before I even get into that, let me clear all that part. Let's just work with identity first. Then we can actually come back to that. So if I create this table here, I've identified that the person is a primary key, right? Completed successfully. If I refresh here, we'll have the person table there. There we go. So if I select all from person, of course, it's going to be an empty table. So if I insert into the person ID here, I don't even need to put one here. It will automatically, detect that that is an ID. And if I go ahead and execute, it actually created, inserted. So if you go ahead and select the query, right? So if I go ahead and execute again, insert, and again, and again, so we'll have the same name, but we'll never have the same person ID. So if I go ahead and select all to check all the query, now you see we have the same person but different ID. So now if I want to check for if I want to log in as one of the users, how do I do it? I can just do select all from person, where if I want to select the number Todd Mary, right, I can actually use the primary person ID to identify it, where person ID, right, equal to 3. So let's try to execute that. So it gave us the third one. If I want to select the Mary that is number 2, so it will give us the second Mary 2, right? So that way we have actually created an identity for each users, regardless even if they have the same one. So we can actually know which one is one. So that is the what the primary key actually does. If we come back here, we have primary key, right? So it works as not null and unique. So it cannot be null, even though I didn't put anything there as a primary key in creating it, it automatically created it, right? So moving forward, if we look at which one do we have? Let's look at not null. So not null is if I come here, currently here, if you can see the age I put null, right? It's null. So that means it's accept null. And if I go ahead, so to actually ensure that the table does not accept null and it will enforce users to input something in this value, in this age value, we can actually either alter this table or either delete this column and recreate the column and ensure they use the not null there. And oh, I'm past 10 minutes already. All right, so I'm going to create the continuation video for this. See you in the next video.